The ship's unique design suggests there were no fatalities.
Huh? Oh, come on! You gotta admit this is cool!
So I recently did a poll on my community tab where I asked what my next video should be about. Out of 3 options, the choice with the most votes ended up being a video about anime art and story. Naturally, that made me giddy. I love anime. If you know me in a basic capacity, anime is one of my biggest inspirations. I've been a lifelong anime fan, and I can't deny the massive amount of influence and inspiration the art form has on my own artwork. Talking about anime is something I feel I can provide my own personal thoughts on, since I care so much. And because I care so much, you're just gonna have to listen to me gush for a little bit. I don't know about you, but it sounds like a good idea to me. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we go forward, let's take a quick moment to objectively talk about what anime is as a medium. For the uninitiated, you've probably seen stuff like this before.
This?
Yeah, that's anime. In a way, it's really bizarre when you first look at it. Like all cartoons, however, anime is just as crazy and with the times as many cartoons are in the Western world. Anime is a term that describes Japanese animation. Animation, anime. You get it? We're hitting big brain strats over here. Try to keep up. Now, anime and its partner manga are Japanese media that are animated works and comic work, respectively. Manga is usually considered the original works of a mangaka, or a manga writer. Usually these people have a team and work for a publisher that serializes or compiles the comic work for future publication. Now from here, oftentimes a manga might grow excessively popular. And when this happens, a studio might be tasked with the rights to make an animated adaptation for a given series. The series doesn't have to be finished, and it doesn't have to follow the story fully. If it's popular, they're going to make an animation of it. An anime. With all of this in mind, the original story material of a mangaka is often taken at its face value, though there can be some changes to make the source material more clear in the animated runs. Think translation fixes, clarifications, and other things like that. Filler content can also be added to pad out the length of a series, and this can either keep money flowing in for more expensive projects, or explore ideas that the studio might want to use to bring in intrigue for a series. It can be a good thing, or it can be fucking Naruto. Now, there are hundreds upon thousands of anime and manga out there, but some stand on shoulders of others, and some, you might as well just throw down the shitter. Naturally, when you have such a large medium such as animation and comic work, not all are created equal. There are all kinds of genre in the anime community that appeal to many different walks of life. Everybody has their favorites. Isekai, shoujo, magical girl, seinen, mecha, slice of life comedy, etc, etc. There are so many genres of anime and manga, like western cartoons and comic books, you can get yourself lost in these hollowed halls of artwork. Speaking of artwork really quick, let's talk about it. Anime and manga are often very meticulous in what they choose to accentuate in their media. Many of these artworks express detailed backgrounds of various medium and very expressive characters. While this is not always the case, generally we can expect to see very bright, expressive eyes, detail in anatomy presentation, and wild color palettes that make contact lenses and hair dye look like $1 billion business. But it all had to start somewhere. This is just artistic expression hitting its peak. Back in the day, this wasn't always the case, and depending on the genre, your mileage may vary. You can easily see that the whole system of Japanese animation and media have made waves and inspired generations of people for ages. However, for my money, and in my opinion, I would argue that the summit of these Japanese works goes no higher than that of shonen. So, what is shonen? Shonen is a genre made for adolescent guys, boys if you will. While this is the target audience, anyone can get into shonen and have a ball while they do. With action, tension, a bit of romance, and crazy strong characters, the shonen genre is one of the core backbones of editorial media in the Japanese animation community. If you've heard shit like this, you've got some basic idea of shonen. As a genre, shonen anime has captivated many people. It uses its themes of friendship and overcoming hardship and beating the shit out of anyone with absolute dickhead energy to set up memorable journeys that many, myself included, have grown truly fond of. There are many different shonen I could talk about, but I think that there is only one that's affected me so profoundly that it's my go-to for story, composition, artwork, and comfort. Yeah, it's time to move on to what you came here for. You've already read the title and I don't have to say too much more here. For many, myself included, this is considered to be the godfather of many modern day shonen, and without it, most shonen wouldn't even exist in the first place. That's right. Let's talk about Akira Toriyama's masterpiece, known simply as Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball was initially released to the world from the mind of one Akira Toriyama during the winter of 1984. A story based on the classical Chinese epic Journey to the West, Dragon Ball is a story of Son Goku, a young child with a monkey tail that lived deep in the countryside of Mount Paozu. One day, after minding his own little monkey business, he meets a genius girl by the name of Bulma, who explains herself by explaining her quest for the titular Dragon Balls. Excited by adventure, young Goku joins Bulma as her strongman, and the rest is history from that point on. And that's our basic synopsis. But I'm not here to talk about the story today. I feel this basic narrative is necessary to set up what to expect from Dragon Ball artistically and structurally. It's a very stylized series, and that decision reaches throughout all the design choices we see in it. Let's start with the main character designs, particularly Son Goku. Goku is a small, pure-hearted little bumpkin from the middle of nowhere. Our first introduction to him shows him doing his daily chores, fishing, cutting wood, and practicing martial arts. Goku is a simple, straightforward character. He wears his training gi neatly, and compared to other characters, he's very tiny. Very much so. Goku's only about 12 or so at the start, and here he is, designed to be this little guy that is blessed with the strength of giants. Looking at his design, Goku has a round face, like many children do. He's got big, expressive eyes, and unruly, unkempt hair. This hair makes Goku extremely noticeable as a silhouette. He is our main character. If you blocked out all of his features, you could still tell who Goku is. He's got a super iconic design that many people the world over can recognize. With this in mind, we can tell, without a doubt, who we're supposed to be paying attention to the most. It leads you to look for Goku when you're moving throughout the series. He's so iconic, you kinda can't miss him. A few pages later in this chapter, you can see a new design in the character of Bulma. Bulma is a genius from Civilization that is on her quest to find the Dragon Balls with her radar. In contrast to Goku, she's a young woman, older and smarter than this child that only knows the wilds. She is tall, with neat hair and bright blue eyes. She dons a dress with a pouch full of tools at her hip. Always ready for any occasion, Bulma is a pretty girl and is not afraid to show off her brains and her penchant for the finer things in life. These characters clash together by chance, when Goku is nearly hit by Bulma's car. A brilliant display of modern amenity meeting untamed wilderness. These opposites attract in a way that allows the balancing of designs to take effect. Color, size, personality, etc. It is important to note that these two and other characters later work so well together because their designs and personalities contrast the protagonists so much. It informs the aesthetic of the story arcs for each character. Without each chosen design, the comedy, artistic choices, and even the solution to the story's critical points can't be resolved. It's characterization at work, and it's really good. I find all of this really important to set the stage as far as what is and what is not to be expected in a series. If you can't make the characters interesting, you're in for a boring time. Another way to give strong expectations is your setting. You can't have immersion without making sure we know what the world looks like. The first setting often concretes what one can expect from the narrative, for the most part. Things can in fact change for later, but a strong start is memorable and crucial for drawing people in. When looking critically at Toriyama and his craftsmanship in the series, there's a lot of meat that can be bitten into. Settings are extremely important when informing animation. In order for something to feel lifelike in a series, one has to make sure that the settings match with the story being told. If there are details, they ought to be used to inform the space that the characters take up, and how they themselves use it. Both the anime and manga of Dragon Ball keep the background simple, except when we get these larger spreads of important moments. This is a given, obviously, but there is a lot of freedom in most of the art direction to be as wondrous and wide open as possible. In the countryside, the mountains feel tall, but soft, whimsically keeping them from looking too jagged or daunting. Patches of grass and foliage break up the mountainous landscape, showing how lush the world of Dragon Ball really is. There's always a simple use of directional movement when you follow through the contours of the rocks or the hatching placed on the shrubbery, and there's a distinct, organic roundness that is consistent in both the figures and the setting. In the anime, the backgrounds are painted set pieces, they have noticeable softness to them, and they are bright and full of color. Cities, on the other hand, are often made to be large, compact places. Right angles and straight lines are to be expected, but not in Dragon Ball. Toriyama's specialty lies in these rounded forms and figures, like I said before. As a result, the cities are often full of domed buildings or tall towers with bubbly tops set at their peaks. Cars and robots exist too, but they are also stylized in this way, using Toriyama's philosophy to his advantage. It's a stylized look into the future, and I'm all for it. Inside these buildings, we see a great use of simple perspective in the form of tiling and desks that conform to the direction of what is shown. And yes, even inside some of these buildings, we get landscapes and creatures. I mean, it wouldn't be Dragon Ball without these motifs. Why not just use them? And of course, the Tenkaichi Budokai venue is iconic as well. The poor stage has stood so many beatdowns, but its tiled surface is a cornerstone for the series. From Dragon Ball to Z, we see it many times, and it makes sure to show us the most impactful moments of the series. Out of all the components to Dragon Ball, I would argue that this is its most lifelike aspect. Japanese anime from this time tended to use watercolor and gouache paint to make backgrounds. They are often static, leaving just enough space for important stuff to be animated. So think water lapping at the shores or trees waving in the wind. And these paintings are all layered too. The cells line up to scroll from one side to the other of the screen. Now, I could talk about settings all day, but I think we should move on to something a little bit more important. The characters. This is where Dragon Ball flourishes the most, so we have to give it a look. Dragon Ball is a very dynamic series. We get to watch Goku on his journey into adulthood and beyond. Literally. Starting at the beginning, we see that everything is drawn to be much larger than our protagonist. It's an important design choice to use, as this makes Goku intrinsically more fun to root for. Despite his size and his power though, he's still a kid. When he's drawn optimistic and joyful, his rounded features are accentuated with wide stances of excitement, and his perpetual grin is infectious. However, it's apparent that by design, Goku is a martial artist. He's serious about his craft. Dude, all the kid has in his closet are training gis. It literally couldn't be spelled out anymore. While this unending optimism doesn't really change as the series goes on, we can see through the growth of the character, he's more than just a happy camper. Noticeably, Goku becomes a much more sharp and fierce character the more older and mature he gets. He grows a sense of righteous fury that cements the confidence of the Son Goku character. Take this particular panel from a scene where Goku steps in to save his friend, Tien Shinhan, from Drum, a monstrous dragon-like demon. We see a complete 180 from the usual Goku. His eyes are sharp and fiercely fixed towards his enemy. His stance is firm, with the strongest side of him facing forward. He's wedged firmly in between the demon and his ally. There is a wonderful use of value, or shading, in both the anime and the manga panel this comes from. The background is simple, with attention put into the simple items placed around it. Without knowing much about the scene, about Dragon Ball really, you could still look at all the elements around here and say, huh, this main character seems to be doing something to defend somebody. Goku, wearing orange against the blue sky, stands firmly against the background. He is front and center, with minimal use of value used to ensure he is center of stage here. If I showed you this and asked you to give a few words about it, you might say this is a very tense scene, and rightfully so. Speaking of color, by the way, Dragon Ball is a very colorful series. When looking at the choices of colors, everything is as vibrant as the characters are. The rustic greens and blues and browns of the mountain and sky are very much natural and scenic. It's a very natural show that shows how woodsy the world is when not in cities and tournament settings. Man-made structures often get these swaths of deep red, cool gray, and dark blues, like a tournament setting, to give an example. Different uses of the color spectrum allow these settings to pop just right, and the characters use it too. The reason why I brought this up is that one of the biggest motifs in design is the rule of complements. Colors tend to have opposites that go very well together. The strongest example, again, is Goku. Aside from his hair, his gi and obi are iconically orange and blue, respectively. Orange is a bright color, and it fits Goku's personality. He is warm, optimistic, and sunny. The color of orange just fits his persona. The blue in this design grounds him. When he's in control, he has a cool level-headedness to him. He can switch from excited to stern and confident, which switches his palette and is a nice touch to fully round both sides of the character. We see that these colors also attribute themselves to his most important allies. They show similar courage and strength, and this, in turn, keeps the themes of the color in the winning corner. It draws us to them, and when we see orange and blue, we know who to root for the most part. It keeps us looking for who might be an ally and who isn't. Keyword being might. As far as the style used to portray the characters, Dragon Ball is cartoony, but still keeps in mind anatomy and how the body moves. We see exaggerated poses that are still bound to realism, but subvert your expectations when you see magic or flight. Characters range from the big and burly to the streamlined and muscularly toned. Intricate posing is used to separate characters and their school of origin. The traditional Kame stance, the school of Crane, all of these have to be distinct enough to make these fights believable. And come on, you've seen the Kamehameha. I mean, any kid on the playground knows what that is, and that's why it's so iconic. You know what series is coming whenever you see that. Now, each main cast character has anatomical quirks that are well developed, and still abide by traditional anatomy without them being too realistic. This is a comic, after all. I say all of this to say that the use of the body is well studied and makes the Dragon Ball art style really unforgettable. As Toriyama grows more confident in his anatomical knowledge, we can see that he makes the characters a playground for design freedom. The best example I can give of this is Piccolo. Piccolo Jr., to be specific. In the manga, we can see Piccolo as one of the most intricate characters in the roster. Piccolo is a towering 7-foot-tall monster of a being, smooth, rippling lines texture his skin and where his major muscle groups are. We can see rib patterns and textures along these areas as well. They contrast his deep green skin with lighter colors, yellow in the manga and pink in the anime. His skin is sectioned off with bands of red around certain parts of his body. Again, Toriyama allows color and texture to lead you around the design of the character. His outfit is complete with a dark purple gi and a white cape and turban. This gives him an almost foreign look to everyone we've seen. Piccolo is not the same as the cast we know so well. Let's also examine Piccolo's face. His eyes have a very evil quality to them. He has no eyebrows, though the muscles of his face pull into a permanent scowl. Piccolo is meant to look as alien as possible, while still having some relatable human features, to some degree anyway. Even down to his 3 fingers instead of 4, his slug-like antenna, his wicked canine teeth, and his hooded brow that is accentuated by his pronounced temples. When Piccolo and Goku clash, you can see a fight not only of ideals, but forces of nature. Good versus evil. If I had to pick and choose who was the most well-designed character next to Son Goku, without a doubt, I'd put my money on the Prince of Demons, Piccolo. Finally, let's go over some posing and usage of layout. Dragon Ball was a martial arts series. It wasn't at first, but it became a gold standard for tournament arcs. In my opinion, the usage of carefully crafted angles in space to shift the camera around the characters is used spectacularly. As Dragon Ball focuses on fighting, there is a progression with not only the complexity of the fighting styles and technique, but also the use of recurring themes. Goku goes through this series constantly growing. When we see him fighting at first, he only knows basic combat. His stance is wide and he's open, something others comment on. By the time of the first tournament, he's grown more capable and is prepared to use the tournament grounds properly. The setting of the tournament is a flat landscape, but the spatial setup of the tiles is effective in gauging angles and distance that the characters travel, be it running, jumping, or being launched with powerful strikes. By the end of it all, the tournament ring is in ruins, and we see that Goku has lost. He needs more training. While the series progresses, we get to see 2 more tournaments in the series. These gauge the middle and end points for the series, and the characters in it. Goku grows stronger and more profound with his skills from the first tournament to the second. When we return here, we add verticality to this tournament field. Not only are we speeding it forward and giving heavily choreographed fights, we can see that Toriyama now commands something new to this fight: verticality. It's a way to shake up the space of the venue, and it truly makes the posing and dynamic moves more intentional. The fight with Tien and Goku takes to the air and shows that Goku, while still capable, is not strong enough to contend with this new level of change, and again, he loses. And from here, we go into the final arcs of the story. Goku has experienced a whole bunch of fighting now, and by the end of it all, he's aged into his full state of maturity. He's an adult now, and he's been training with the God of Earth. Goku is at his strongest, and he is now far past equal terms with his contemporaries. In his fights, he bounds across the ring with efficient movements and blinding speed. We've seen these abilities before, but there's a level of confidence in his assumptions and skill that assuages the audience. This is a different Goku. He's seasoned. He knocks his opponents around easily, or just outright dodges their attacks, and when he finally gets to the final fight with Piccolo, we see all the stuff that we've talked about here in one final bout. Goku, while we've watched him grow, has grown to be formidable. He's an adult now, but against Piccolo, he's still smaller than a demon. They clash in both design and ideals. When they fight, they exchange heavy blows, tearing up the ring with each attack they make. The use of 3D space is here again as well. The verticality is present when Piccolo soars into the air after taking a beating. We even see size play as Piccolo turns into a giant to dwarf the smaller Goku. Through it all, the paneling and the animation is efficient and it's easy to guide yourself through. You don't feel tired of exposition as the fighting is taking center stage. By the end of it all, the clash is so brutal that Piccolo is resorting to dirty tricks, destroying as much as possible. And through it all, we see our symbol of good and triumph in Goku. Despite him being battered, bloody, and given the donut treatment, he fights fair and square until the very end, knocking out Piccolo and being proven as the strongest under the heavens. His ideals, his character, has won out in the end. I love the original Dragon Ball series. It's not too long, and it's incredibly infectious with its settings and ideas. I look at it when I write my characters, my story. Even the canine you see before you has gained his starting point from Dragon Ball. I look at this series with nostalgia, and I'm happy it was one of my first original anime exposures. Akira Toriyama made, hands down, one of the richest worlds in fiction by playing with a simple concept and expanding on it. He kept things incredibly sharp and concise, even when he forgets some plot points later in the series. You can still look at the artwork and say, yeah, that's Dragon Ball. There's literally nothing else like it. It's funny, I didn't even talk about Dragon Ball Z, but I think I might at some point. This video is pretty long, but I'm happy to gush about it at a second part if you guys want. I'm also down to talk about other series artistically and give my thoughts on them. Let me know if there's something I should talk about in the comment section below. Maybe I'll check it out. If you like something, I think it's important to give it a look over. Why do you love it? What makes you want to be like that too? I follow this philosophy when I look at Dragon Ball. It's changed my life, but just saying that makes you want to look at it even further. I could talk about it for hours, but at some point, I'd be spewing white noise. If you enjoy something, share it. That's something that Dragon Ball allows me to do. Maybe next time, I could share a little bit more. Until then, I'll just let you go. If you like this video, give it a like, and tell me about your favorite comic or animation in the comments down below. Maybe I'll look into it at some point, and we can talk about it candidly. With that said though, I'm NoodleDog, and I'll see you dogs later.